Yeah. Right.
And it moves
Right.
almost like when you know how they move. So with the G-force, well, it moves the way if you point a little point of flashlight or a laser dot, and you move that around. That's how they move. Is how like a projected porthole.
Yes, and many children see them too. About 75% of the world's children today are being born with etheric vision. And when your children talk with people and have daydream playmates, the chances are they are actually speaking to some of these people. Because these angels or angelic forces or nature spirits, as they're often called, will often make themselves seen.
The color just drains from her face. And I'm kind of stumped because I could tell that something is truly shocking her right now, but I have no idea what the deer in headlights kind of turned into almost like a panic.
And I said, I've never seen a butterfly like you before.
I know that the paranormal is real. Listen.
As soon as I spoke to it, it turns around and makes eye contact with me. And then it stands upright.
And it was at that moment that I saw it was like an orange light appear above this row of trees. From this sort of orange light, this thing appeared. Its wings were actually like sycamore leaf shaped.
And I started talking to them. I'm like, hi, are y'all the dwarves? And I would hear whispers that would say, hi, yeah, you want to play? And it wasn't just my imagination. And I had told them, I'm like, my dwarves, they like beer, you know? And my dad's like, yeah, sure, your dwarves like beer. And they were holding a conversation, and his beer slid upwards instead of downwards, how the house was tilted. And him and my brothers jumped up.
So I stopped calling out Adam, and I'm just kind of, my mind draws a blank, and I stop behind that tree stump. I'm pretty close to it now because I took a few steps forward, and I see this thing.
Welcome everybody tonight to Fascinating Fae. Tonight, we're traveling to Florida to talk with Nina. Nina, how are things going in Florida tonight?
Oh, things are doing pretty well. Can't complain. I mean, I'm in the Sunshine State, so no snow for us. Disc golfing weather every day.
One of my favorite jokes to make at the start of Fascinating Fae is that no podcast is allowed to start on Earth without talking about the weather. So thank you for helping me check that box.
You're welcome.
Sunny where I am too, here in beautiful Costa Rica. Well, Nina, what I do at the start of every show is I tell my guests and the audience listening the same three things. So I'll tell them to you now, if that's cool with you.
Sure.
All right. Well, the first thing I like to say is that here at Fascinating Fae, we are not attempting to convince anybody of anything. There's no burden of convincing. And I really emphasize that because I do think that that kind of gets in the way of finding out what's really going on with people. And I do think that if you're not necessarily initiated or sensitive or previously exposed to this subject matter, it can be like difficult, to connect with where someone's coming from. And I know that like for myself, with what I saw in 2019, for the longest time, like I was really over explaining it, trying to convince people of what I saw was real. At this point, I've just accepted that it's real and that other people's stuff is real too. So no emphasis on like the need to convince is an important part of coming on the show. Second thing I say is that it is brave to come on this show. The fairy subject matter is kind of the lowest rung on the paranormal totem pole. People will talk engaged about UFOs and Sasquatch all day long. There's lots of content around that. But when it comes to like fairies, it's pretty limited still. And it kind of tends to be dismissed like, oh, you saw a fairy? Like, come on, that's child's play or something. I think for that reason, it's brave to come on the show. And I think also like, you could have a personal impact if people find out you've had this experience and are judging you. How's your mental health? How's your like stability in this job? There can be risks actually that come with speaking the truth about what you've seen. So I really think it's brave to come on the show. And I want you to know, Nina, I think it's brave for you to be here today. So thank you for that as well.
Oh, thank you. I'm actually excited to be here and share my experiences.
Well, great. That's encouraging to hear. And I do applaud that bravery. It's not a platitude. The final thing I say is that my interview style on the show is that I like to let my guests have a lot of time and space to get into things. There's no rush from me, but at the same time, Nina, I'm not just going to leave you hanging out there in time and space. When you're naturally done your storytelling, I'll jump in with relevant questions and maybe some limited interpretation that I can offer. But the floor is mostly yours, and I want you to feel as comfortable with regards to building context, introducing yourself. Like if you think anything is relevant to what happened in our initial encounter that we're going to talk about, go there. A lot of times a person's self is relevant to an encounter. What was happening at that time can potentially be relevant. So it's up to you, whatever you feel comfortable with, of course, but just know that there's lots of time and space. So with all that said, here's what I'll do. I'll ask you, Nina, if you could be so kind as to kind of, if you're feeling up to it, introduce yourself a little. And primarily, I'm interested in this first experience where you saw a fairy in your youth. Tell me like everything about that day, everything about what you saw, if you'd be so kind, please.
Sure. So I am 44 years old. I am a Wiccan. I have a strong connection with Mother Earth. I work with elements. I do read tarot. So I feel like, my entire life I've had this obsession with fairies and otherworldly, entities, very open-minded. So when I was younger, very familiar with Brian Froud, his artwork. I believe it's Good Fairies, Bad Fairies. I know there was another book, Fairies Are Real, but like literally just had this obsession. So for my senior prom, I had cotton candy blue hair, had silver fairy wings that complemented my dress. So my friends and I were kind of the freaks of the high school, different. Always had different colored hair, just oddballs. But I was always very welcoming to new people. Don't like bullies. Don't like mean people. So on prom, my friends and I, we had rented a hotel. So we go to prom, dressed as a fairy, having a great night, go back to our hotel, ended up eating, like an ecstasy pill, partied on throughout the night. A little bit later, my friends leave because it's right next to like a Denny's. So I get left alone in the room. I'm listening to music. I'm in my own little, just chilling, lying on the bed. And the energy in the room changes. I noticed. I can't explain other than it just got different. Everything changed. And as I'm staring, looking forward, there's a lamp. And all of a sudden, just very slowly, like a bubble appears. And I'm really not, like it takes me a minute. I'm like, what is this? And so it's a bubble with a fairy. She's got a dark blue dress. She has messy hair. And so I'm like kind of paralyzed, I guess you could say, like not afraid, but like, what is this really happening type thing? Like what's manifesting in front of me? Can't believe what I'm seeing as it floats towards me. And I could see it plain as day. And like, I tried to be still, but reached up very slowly, with my fingertip and touch it. and she smiles and just floats away and like disappears. And I'm just like, what in the world just happened? Like, and there's no one. I was really sad no one else was in the room for me to be like, hey, and are you seeing this too? You know? But it was like, the feeling was so different. It was almost like, I can't explain it. It was warm. It was different. Like the whole energy changed. And I'd always believed in otherworldly things, but until that moment, like it kind of confirmed it. Like there are definitely things that we see that can't be explained. And I was really afraid to tell people for a long time because I don't want people to think I'm insane because I am different. I've always been different. I've always been an outcast. So like people would expect weird things like that to come from me. I know what I saw and I know it was real.
This is fascinating. May I ask you some questions?
Sure, of course.
First of all, I do think like this idea of being different is somehow a superpower when it comes to this subject matter. Whereas in like quote unquote day-to-day real life, it's kind of a detriment. And I don't know what's going on with that, but I do think that Fae establish contact with a certain kind of person. I think Fae connection is possible for anybody. Let me be really clear. But I kind of get this like feeling about certain people, and it doesn't surprise me, I guess, at this juncture of doing the show when I hear that people are having connection happen. So that's just kind of my first observation for what that's worth to you. But a lot of different types, like highly sensitive folks for sure, intuitives, creatives, but also like activists or people that don't like stay quiet in situations that call for somebody to be standing up. All these kind of trademarks of people are very shared across an extremely diverse subset of the population. It doesn't really matter if you're old, young, man, woman, black, white, whatever, your religious background, your previous beliefs in the subject matter. The thing that is most interesting to me as a pattern is that fairies like these kind of unusual people that have a very good heart and a good center moral compass, and are I guess because of that drawn to self-expression in a way that is visually identifiable as different often, or behaving in a way that is like different than others. A lot of people that I talk to, I don't exactly know what I'm trying to give voice to, other than just like a lot of people that I talk to feel a little different than other people. And there's something to that. Whatever it is, I'm not sure, but I do think there's something there. Okay, so now I want to ask questions about what you actually saw, if that's cool with you.
Yeah, and this was in 2000, by the way. I don't know if I mentioned the year, but this was in the year 2000 I graduated, so this was like my senior prom.
Well, first of all, remarkable that this event is staying with you 25 plus years later.
It really has.
And so, I mean, if this was just a casual hallucination, I don't know that would occur. And I speak from the perspective of a person who's done their fair share of hallucinogenic drugs in my life.
Yeah.
You know, I'm hard pressed to remember any of the, same here. Yeah. From time to time as deemed necessary.
Yes. Therapeutic, very.
Especially in lower doses. I do talk on the show about easing your way into the pool, you know, one toe at a time.
Yes.
But especially for people that are sometimes going to be listening and might get the wrong idea that like, hey, eating a bunch of mushrooms is going to help me see fairies.
No.
Yes, maybe, but not exactly.
Not exactly. Right.
Yeah. That would be my answer. I do think that mushrooms and other hallucinogenic drugs, mushrooms in particular, let's just stick with for a second, are a kind of Fae tech. I think they're a fairy technology. I do think they're like an earth technology that does enable a type of enhanced connection to earth frequencies that you're not necessarily able to observe at all times. Does that mean that the experiences you have when you're on mushrooms are hallucinations, or are you opening up your perception to what is constantly available in terms of information that the world is presenting you? You're just not picking it up. I think it's the latter. I think you're just getting to see what's always there. That's my perspective on on drug use with regards to mushrooms. Ecstasy, LSD, mushrooms, a lot of these substances are part of fairy encounters, but I don't think they're the cause of them, if that makes any sense.
I believe it lifts the veil. It's always been there. You just have to be able to see it. And when the time is right, you will. It will reveal itself. That's how I feel about it.
I think that's really well said, Nina. Okay, so you're in the hotel room. The lamp is like about how far away from you is something I was just curious about.
So I would say maybe 6-7 feet. I mean, not very far, from like I'm lying on the bed. It's in a hotel, so it's not very, it's not a very big room. But the lamp was, I believe, on one of the dressers right in front of me. So I would say 6 or 7 feet, maybe at the most.
So pretty close. And then this bubble precedes the fairy inside of it. So tell me what that bubble coming into being was like. Like, I know it's so difficult to talk about visual things with words.
Right.
That's the hugest limitation of the radio.
Right.
But I guess my questions are kind of like, how did this look? Did this look like a real bubble, like AKA a soap bubble? Did this look like something otherworldly? Like, what were the qualities of what you were seeing? As best as you can remember, I'm really curious how it took form, if that makes any sense.
So it just kind of manifested. It was just there, slowly formed into, and it wasn't like a bright light. It looked almost like it could be resembled of a soap bubble, maybe a little more plastic looking, but it was translucent. Like, it wasn't like, it's kind of hard to explain, but like there was the bubble and she was there inside of it, and it was just like she belonged there. But if you would imagine, it's kind of like a soap bubble in a way. That would be a good way to describe it, I guess. And there was no like really bright light that I remember. Nothing that wasn't like a blinding light, but it was there. It was translucent, but I could see her plain as day. Like the messy hair, the little dress, like what you would think a fae looks like.
It's interesting what you're describing. I mean, I think obviously sounds a lot like an orb, which is commonly associated with fae encounters. It's so hard to talk words about visual things,
really
but
is,
when you're
though.
saying, I mean, trying to describe what I saw is fucking impossible.
But you had the light. I like your description of what you saw. I did not have like a bright light. So when you say an orb, what is that different from fae? I guess because there was a little being in it. So in my mind, it was a fairy. But I'm interested to see what your take on it. Like when you say an orb.
I kind of think that basically like in their, so again, I just need to remind you for a second here, Nina, and everyone listening, I am not a fairy expert.
I know you're not. No, I just want your input. Yeah, we're just talking casually. So this is great.
Well, indeed, that's the format of the show. And I'm glad you appreciate that. Here's my take then, since you're asking. Like, I think that they are a pure energy being. So rather than being constituted of carbon matter like we are, they are constituted only of the part inside of us that we would consider our soul, which is the intangible, ethereal, indistinguishable, immortal soul. I think they are just that, basically. And so I think in their relaxed form, and especially as a mode of transportation or transgressing dimensional planes, they go orb. And I think an orb form is like a very, like if you think about the cell, like a plant cell or an animal cell, or just the earth itself or water droplet, like a globular orb type shape is extremely efficient and is found everywhere in nature at the base level. And I think that they kind of use orb structure as a passive way of moving around, because I've heard a lot of people see orbs and then later see a fairy come from the orb or
So that's their vessel.
Yes, or if you could imagine
Wow.
like
I got chills when you said that. Interesting. Okay. I like that. I've never even thought about that.
like imagine like yeah, see, I'm getting some weird goosebumps over here too. Interesting. I have this like thing I'm trying to not in the episode say, oh, I have goosebumps, but it just fucking happens too much sometimes during the show process. I always take it to mean we're getting close to the truth or something like that. It's an affirming thing when both guest and a host are getting goosebumps around a topic. But yeah, so that's like my guess. And there's this really excellent orb photographer from Australia, Elizabeth Webb, who takes thousands of pictures of orbs. And many times in the center of the orb, you can see things. Like, and it's fascinating because some orbs seem to contain an animal spirit, like an eagle or a kangaroo. Others definitely contain faces, which appear human or, other. And like I said, I've spoken to at least 8 or 9 people that have directly seen an orb encapsulating a fairy within it, like you're talking about, a bubble essentially with a fairy inside. Or they've seen like a colored light rapidly approaching through the forest, stop, and then change into a fairy. And so if we go back to kind of something we were talking about offline, which is that my first guest ever, Ron, he said, be careful to step on a cockroach because fairies can appear as anything you imagine, and that they're inherently able to shapeshift. I think that maybe because they are a pure energy being, they can shapeshift.
Yes.
But the act of shapeshifting is not like matter turning into other matter. It's just energy being perceived and then changing the perception of that energy to something else, because they are basically just pure frequency. But they are, I'm rambling here to answer your question because it's a complicated question, but I'll finish by saying this. Like, I think that full time they are themselves and they look like themselves. And I think that when they are moving or going from one dimensional plane to another, or just, doing like a more, because in Liz's photography, you clearly get the impression that there's sort of like some socializing happening in the sky amongst many orb entities. So I think that maybe that's their latent form, and that it takes maybe a lot of mental work or effort to appear more in like a form like you're describing that you saw in the center of the bubble. I really don't know. Like, again, going back to Ron, my first guest, which is a funny thing to do because it's almost 200 episodes ago, he said that when he first encountered his fairy, Cassandra, she came into the room in a orb of light, and that he could see kind of like if someone was coming into your room with a flashlight, you'd see the beam of light coming first. You saw the light coming first, then the orb, and then she was inside of it. It sounds remarkably similar to what you're describing, in fact. So I've kind of heard it before. Now, does that mean it's true? I don't know, but this is just my limited interpretation that I can offer. Let me ask you again some questions. I know I've sort of asked it already, but about her, like this messy hair and stuff. Does this appear like a human? Does it look like a cartoon? Like, how would you describe what exactly you're looking at in terms of its quality? I guess I think I've asked the question as best I can. What did it really look like?
Look, a little person. Like a little person with wings. Trying to think the best way. Kind of like Ferngully. Everyone's seen Ferngully, like how they look, but not really cartoon, but like how her character is. If you would imagine that to come to life as a small person, I'm not sure if you're familiar with like the Brian Froud illustrations. Very similar to stuff like that.
Not only am I familiar with Brian Froud, recently some people have been coming forward with photography and of Fae, and then you can clearly like see the corollary between what Brian Froud was drawing and this photo. You're like, that he was drawing that thing, and There's
Yes.
one in particular, like he's got this purple wispy fairy that he drew, and this one person I recently spoke to from Australia, Brooke, took a photo in her garden, and I mean, I'm not saying like Brian Froud traced her photo, but I mean, it's getting to that level where it's like, okay. So I'm really like listening to you, and I hear you when you say kind of like Fern Gully, Brian Froud. Was it clothes or any other details that you remember? I know you mentioned the hair, messy hair, like about how long? Sorry, there's like 5 questions there.
No, that's fine. It's like short. It was like short, like, above the shoulders, just messy, like sticking out, like just kind of like I would describe feral, a feral, little feral being is how I would describe her.
I can picture it. The wings. Tell me more about the wings if you can remember any details, please.
I believe the wings were like a light color. I would say more like a beige color with like a little bit of dark brown on them, from what I can remember. Like a natural. Not quite like not a butterfly, more like maybe like a dragonfly. Kind of how dragonfly wings are colored is how I would describe it.
Yeah, the orientation of the wings is, I think I recall you saying like at the back, basically.
What's that?
Like the orientation of the wings, like they're right at the back of the shoulder blades.
Yes.
Is how it looked when I saw mine. Like it was a straight up and down figure. You could tell this isn't a dragonfly because dragonflies have the wings at the top.
Right. No, didn't. Right. No, they were the shape of them were wing-like, but the color is what I was, referring to as when I said dragonfly, how they were more like a translucent, you know what I mean? Like, not like a butterfly wing where it's more solid.
Like a gossamer. I know what you mean.
Right.
Yeah, fairy wings on multiple descriptions are see-through like a dragonfly's.
Yes.
They're like a gossamer. Yeah, that seems to be very accurate. About how big was it overall? If you could correlate it to an object, like a soda can, a basketball, about how big was this thing?
I'm trying to put my hand out. I'm looking at some produce. So maybe an onion, like, the size of like a medium size, like a produce, maybe an orange, wasn't very, very big.
That's, again, a very common size that I hear frequently from people. It's so interesting that there's diminutive little winged humanoids around. Like, still, after having seen one myself, I still can't really get my head around the fact that that's a real thing, but it's very real. Do you remember, Nina, did you make eye contact with this entity?
I did. I do remember making eye contact and being in awe for the few seconds that, was in front of me. And it's almost like she smiled. It's like almost got this little smirk before it drifted off, before it actually disappeared. I did get some sort of expression from it.
That feels a lot like it wanted you to see it, and it was happy that you did.
Yes.
Okay, so let's kind of, thanks for all those details.
You're welcome.
And again, I only ask questions on Fascinating Fae out of just curiosity. It's not a gotcha process. People remember with varying degrees of detail, especially an event 20 plus years ago. So I really do thank you for, searching the memory banks for those details. So now kind of in a more overarching question. So take me back to that moment. You watch this bubble appear. In it, you see a fairy. You make eye contact. What on earth is going through your mind? I'm really curious if you can remember.
Being in awe mostly, and just I had so many things going through my mind. Like, am I actually seeing this? Oh my God, is this real? It is actually coming towards me. Like, all this is playing through my mind. Like, what in the world? Like, you know what I mean? Because like I having a weird obsession with something like that, and then watching it manifest and come towards you is, I don't, it's hard to put into words. And then being afraid to tell people this also, like, who's going to believe me? This was over 20 years ago. This is 26 years ago. Who's going to believe that I actually saw this? So yeah, there's a lot going through my mind.
When you say that originally you kind of felt the energy change, can you describe that a little bit better if you could, please?
I mean, from what I can remember, I mean, I'm lying on the bed, listening to music. It's almost like everything kind of got real quiet in my mind. Like the whole energy in the room changed. I don't know if it necessarily got warmer or colder per se. Just everything felt different right before it like appeared. So it's almost like I knew something was going to happen before it did. So it's almost like a being embraced, kind of. It was warm. It was inviting. It wasn't like I wasn't afraid.
Again, like, it's so interesting because as I listen to you talk, I just think immediately, like, this is my brain doing free association about my first guest, Ron, almost 3 years ago, who describes how he could feel her preceding aura before she came into the room. And he is describing a remarkably similar like workflow. Like, everything got still. He felt like this warm embrace. He then saw the approaching light. It was in an orb. When it came closer, he saw then inside was this fairy, and that was his first encounter. And he's since gone on to have a lot of contact and eventually learned the name Cassandra and established like a real type of communication. But that initial visitation, it must share 25 touch points with yours, like identically. So interesting. Okay, I'll tell you what. The other thing too that is really interesting is that you were kind of dressed up in a fae way, or honoring fairies through your dress, clothing, and hair. And I wonder what did it mean to you to see it? Like, did you interpret it to mean anything having seen that? I wonder if it had an impact on you in any way.
I mean, I just felt like it was a confirmation that, just because people dismiss it and they say that they're not real, it was a confirmation that yes, they are. And there are things we can't explain. And like, I'd referred to earlier, the veil had been lifted. Like, timing is everything. And I felt like she wanted me to know she was there and that it's okay. Like, don't be afraid, and don't be afraid to be yourself.
Something too is coming up for me about the graduation aspect, like a literal graduation into like a different type of understanding, almost like they're giving you a type of graduation or ushering you into your adult phase or something. It's interesting. It's really interesting.
Right. I never thought about that. Yes. And this was my senior prom. So yes, I was graduating that year. This was like a whole new, stepping out of the regular, the mundane, like something new.
Maybe related, maybe not. Sometimes I'll just offer the guests what my intuition is offering me. So, but I'm just a dude who saw a fairy one time. I have no credibility whatsoever. If it's cool with you, I'll kind of put a pin in this amazing story of seeing this fairy. And I really appreciate the degree to which you've been open with the details around all of it. When we were talking earlier, you were telling me an amazing story about something you saw on the beach in Florida. I'd love to hear that, but also if you have any other stories that you feel you'd like to share with me today, they're all game. But I definitely am interested in hearing this one in about the stuff you saw on the beach, because that was really super interesting to me as well. Would you tell that story if you'd be so kind?
Sure. Oh, absolutely. So my husband and I were vacationing in Volcano Beach, Florida, and I believe it's near St. Augustine, like further down on, can't remember the highway right now. So we're in our hotel. The only thing separating us from the beach is a highway. We have our own little private deck to go to the beach. So we're out on our balcony looking at the stars and start to notice some weird activity. And this is not regular spacecrafts. Our spacecraft, we don't have anything that moves like this. Side to side, up and down, just weird things in the sky. So my husband's kind of like just brushing it off. I'm like, dude, are you seeing this? Like, let's go down and get a little closer. So we walk across the road, and I have like a tapestry I'm gonna put down on the beach. And we walk across, get down there, and I noticed right where the waves are crashing, there's a light. And it's like, oh, is that a boat? It's in a weird spot. Like a boat would not be right there where the waves are crashing. I'm like, get your cell phone out. Like, try to get a picture of this thing. So he gets his cell phone out, and as soon as he starts videoing, the light turns on. Well, this thing is just sitting there, and it literally, the only way I can describe it is it turns, like it looks at us, and the light gets really bright. And as I'm putting my tapestry down, I stop, and I'm like, huh? What in the world? So this thing starts coming towards us. It's not a boat. It's about the size of a Volkswagen Beetle. It's a big orb, just a big ball of light. Comes towards us, and it's about 20, 30 feet above us. Like, goes above us. I am running at this point. I'm on that walkway, about to leave my husband. He's got his video or his phone out, and it keeps shutting off. Like, every time he started videoing, it would shut off. And he finally got a little bit of video footage where this thing goes above us, and when it gets directly above our heads, there's no sound. Like, you can hear the waves crashing, you can hear cars going by, you don't hear anything. This thing is right above us, maybe a low hum when it got close enough, but other than that, nothing. And there's lights underneath it, they're changing colors. And we're not the only ones that seen it. We were the only ones on the beach. So behind us, where the other hotels are, there are people coming out on their balconies watching this thing. And it goes across the road and above the hotel, and another little orb comes up next to it, and all of a sudden they just take off and they're gone. I was scared. I've never been so scared in my life. I was actually, because I kept expecting it to make sense. Like, what is this thing? Oh, is it a drone? I don't think it was a drone. I know I can't explain what I saw. My husband was like, you can hear him in the video, which we sent part of our footage to First Coast News. He's like, oh, it's a drone. Then he's like, oh my God, what the hell is this thing? But that was a close encounter. And like, the fact that other people were out on their balcony watching this thing, and is really cool. But it scared me. I was literally shaking. And you can hear my husband say, are you running? And I'm like, yes. You're not? Like, I've seen too many scary movies. I'm not going to be that white girl that, no, you're not getting me. But like, I was literally shaking afterwards. Like, it scared me. I mean, I didn't think it was going to beam me up or anything, but I could not explain it. That was too close for comfort.
It sounds like it was really close.
It really was, though.
What color was it?
It was a big, bright light. Like, it was literally like, if you could imagine, kind of like the Jetsons, like their little kid. But there was like no define like what the craft was until it was kind of like above us. But it's kind of hard to explain. Like, it was dark, but then there was lights on the bottom that kept like changing colors.
I spoke to this woman, Luna, who saw this color changing light situation as well. Try to describe that as best you can, the color changing lights. Like, what colors, like how was it changing? These are my questions.
They were kind of like on the bottom going around, I guess is the best way to describe it, kind of. And it was just like different yellow, green, blue, like, the kind of not no purples, but just like primary colors in a way, I guess would be the best way to describe it. The orb itself was just this bright freaking light, but underneath it, you could kind of make out that it was round, that it was circular some way. And then those lights were spinning, but then, it kept moving. So like it got up directly above us and just kept going across the road as we're standing on that little walkway. And then like I said, right behind us were the hotels, but I've seen all these people out. So we were not the only ones to, see this thing. We were the only ones on the beach. And I spoke with the hotel, the front desk host or whatever, and she's like, oh yeah, we see that stuff all the time. She had it like it wasn't a big deal.
That's when people are like, oh yeah, I actually have the hardest time with that.
She was just like, oh yeah, we have people see that all the time. I'm like shaking like a leaf. I'm like, what the hell was that? Like, oh my God.
It's so interesting. So it's kind of out where the break is, and when you start to film it, it like turns and looks at you. That part's really interesting
No,
too.
it literally turned slowly and looked in our direction is the only way to describe it. And then it got really bright. Like it turned on like its bright lights on us. Like, hey, it beamed on us, and then it like started floating upwards and towards us. And yeah, I'm literally grabbing my blanket off the dirt and like trying to run. And my husband's like still trying to film it. And as our, when people see like Bigfoot and stuff, like how they say their cell phones cut off. No, it really kept cutting off. So like it's cut footage, but we still have it.
If you are able to, I would love to share that video if you're open to it. No pressure though, but I'll just throw that out there now.
Yeah, it's on my older computer. So when I come across it, I will definitely do my best to see if I can get you that footage and, a picture of me in my prom dressed as a fairy, of course. And I had seen other things like that around that same time. There was other activities going on in the sky. And I actually seen one go into the water, like hit the water, not crash, just went into the water. And I'm like, am I seeing this right? And now there's been all kind of things coming out about the UFOs underwater. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that was like, in my mind, I'm like, it's my mind playing tricks on me. Did I really see that? And now there's actual footage of them being in the water, in the ocean. But I guess that wasn't too far off. But there's definitely things that we cannot explain.
It's so interesting that you've seen one go into the water. And I've often thought about that from this perspective. Space, the environment of space is pretty close to the environment underwater, no oxygen, lots of pressure. One craft could easily be built to handle both environments, and if you're trying to hide an entire civilization of others, under the ocean is a great place to do it because only so many humans can go underwater, so.
Absolutely. No, I've always referred to sea life as alien life. There's some things down in the depths that I'm like, that's an alien. You can call it sea. Yeah, you can call it a fish if you want to, but especially like squid and octopus, like they are very alien-like. They're very intelligent, and how they're like, they can camouflage themselves. They can change.
Absolutely. If I somehow got to travel to another planet in a distant galaxy and I landed and a octopus-looking thing walked over, I wouldn't be surprised at all. I'd
Not
be
at all.
Yes, of course. Yeah. Interesting. Just going back to this one that you kind of saw go right overhead. At any point were you able to determine a craft, or was it constantly just obscured by the light it was emanating? Is something I'm curious about.
I believe it was a craft. I'm not sure exactly how it projected so much light around it. It's, you say things can change shape, so it could have been something that was changing, not one form. It's kind of hard to explain it. It wasn't like I didn't get to touch it, but I know from what I saw, and I would ask my husband, who's in the shower, because he actually witnessed that with me. I think you would like his input also, but the only thing, how people describe a disc, I wouldn't say more like a disc, more like kind of like a Jetsons car. It's how I would describe it, like maybe like a little beetle type thing. The bottom of it had like a craft shape to me, but the top was more like luminous, if that makes sense, from what I can remember seeing.
The known noise thing is also super interesting to me.
That's what's scary. No, that is what's scary. When I find the footage and actually send it to you, you can hear the waves crashing. You can hear cars going by. You cannot hear anything. That was what was so scary about it, because you expected, if it's a drone, there's noise. You're going to hear something if it's an aircraft.
Was the speed of movement like fairly lazy? Was it moving quickly? I'm just curious about that before we kind of move on.
Not lazy. No. It definitely could pick up space or speed if it wanted to. It was moving kind of slowly as it was rising and moving away from us. And the only reason why I say that, I feel like it was picking up more speed as it was getting away from us and getting higher, because it went up above the hotels behind us. And as it did, another one came up. That was what was so crazy, is like the other one just came up from out of nowhere, and it was right next to it. And then all of a sudden it was gone. It's like they're there, and then they just took off, and they were just like speed of light gone.
Yeah, like imagine you're on vacation in Costa Rica and you and a buddy rent a pair of jet skis and you're just like bombing around, having fun on a jet ski, checking out, oh, look at this ocean break. Like, look at this cool part of the forest. It feels a lot like that. Like, why are they out in the ocean? Why is it then joining with another one and taking off? It does feel to me, just listening to you anyway, like they were just checking things out or something.
Yeah.
It's so hard to understand, like, what was the purpose of them being there? Another question that comes to mind, and this is something that you may have an answer for or not, no worries if you don't. Did you get any kind of like feeling from it? Like, this is a good thing, this is a bad thing? Did you get any sense of what it might be doing or what it was? Like, I'm just really curious what your gut was telling you.
I was scared, to be honest. I remember trying to make sense of it. I didn't really feel like it was there to harm us, because I mean, it was obviously close enough. If it was going to do any harm, it obviously would have. So I don't feel like it had I didn't get anything from it that it was, there to do harm at all. Maybe, like you said, just maybe it was on vacation. It was riding the waves. It was literally where the waves broke. So, I mean, I feel like it was just checking things out.
That part of it is why I think it was just checking it out. Like, it might have been like, oh, what are waves? Like,
right.
What is this? And then upon perceiving you, it might have been like, oh shit, humans, we were told that we gotta duck if we ever get spotted, and then you gotta wonder, like, is the ball itself the thing, or is inside of it the operator? Is the other question that I often wonder when it comes to these craft. Is the craft itself the entity, or is there an operator inside a type of machine? Hard to determine, very, very hard to determine. I'll briefly share a story of mine with you because it's coming up, and I've told it maybe one time before on the show.
Okay.
It's a very small event, but I used to have this floating cabin. It's just exactly what it sounds like, a little floating cabin. And I had it parked in this like provincial park area in British Columbia. And next to it was a big botanical garden. And every Saturday night in the summer, the botanical garden would do fireworks. And so what would happen is like 100 people in their boats and yachts would come and drop anchor in the bay. And, every Saturday night it was a big party while everyone watched the fireworks happening over the bay from the botanical gardens. So one particular time, and I'd have to look up my phone to find the exact date, but it was around June, July, which is when the fireworks usually start. I was on the deck of the floating house, and it was getting to be dark enough for the fireworks to start. And whenever that happens, they always let off one primary firework to signal the show's about to start and to clear all the birds out of the area. And so they let off one big one, and then 5 minutes later they start the show. So I was on the deck and I watched, I heard, like I perceived the first one go off, boom, and I looked up to see the first big, exploding, tinkling firework. And as I was looking at it, the firework began to dissipate as they do, the lights are kind of fading. But relatively close to where it had erupted, there was this point of light that looked kind of like an Egyptian eye or like an Asian person's eye, hung in the air, like right maybe 50 meters off from where this thing had exploded. And so I'm looking at the firework, and then as the firework is dissipating, my eye is slowly turning to the left because this point of light is not dissipating. And I remember looking at it and having the thought, what is, and I didn't even get to the word that, because it felt like that thing noticed that I had noticed it, or perhaps had noticed that a lot of people had noticed it, and it summarily zipped off to the left from my field of vision, probably covering 100 miles in 1 second. And it just went like across the ocean, over the airport that's close by, and out of view in 1 second, from a dead stop to like a streak of light. And as it was moving so fast, and like I'm still conflicted as to whether I watched it just clear the horizon or whether it sort of just opened up a portal and zipped into the portal, because it literally just appeared to pick up so much speed that it disappeared. I don't really know how else to describe it. But the thing that is distinctly coming up for me is that sense that it noticed that I noticed it. I can relate to that feeling in that one event. That thing really freaked me out too, because zero sound as well. And at the time that I saw it, it must have been maybe 100, 150. I don't know how high fireworks are fired, but they're not that high. And it was basically at the same height as a firework going off. So pretty good view of it. And it was also like the when I say a point of light, it was really interesting. Like how I would describe what I saw was that the light was very, very bright, but it was kind of like not necessarily casting a ton of light around itself. Like if you turn on a flashlight, there's a point at which the flashlight no longer cuts through the darkness and it stops, right? This thing was very, very bright, but it did not appear to be casting a lot of light around it, what I saw. I'm curious if the one you saw in Florida was similar, like it was really bright, but was it illuminating the ground underneath it very well, or was it kind of confusing, like it's very bright, but it's...
No, it's like yours. No, it's exactly how you described it. No, it did not shine like a flashlight, but where, the orb itself was lit up. So yes, you are correct on that. That's exactly how I would describe it.
It's confusing. I know exactly what you mean. It's super bright, but it's not illuminating the surrounding area correspondingly. And however that works, I don't know. I wonder, is that the quality of light then different? Like,
right.
I don't know. What is that? Because usually light has a wavelength and it goes so far, and that's that. But the light, the color, and the motion of these things tends to be really otherworldly when contrasted against normal visual stimulation. So that's why they're so hard to describe, actually.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Well, I'll tell you what, Nina, I like to, with my episodes at Fascinating Fae, try to keep them around an hour and a half mark for everyone listening. That's just out of respect for your time and the audience's time. If it's cool with you, I'll ask you, did you have any other interesting stories from your life that you'd like to share here before we go? If not, I can ask you some going away questions that I ask all my guests.
I can't think of anything at the moment. I love hearing your stories also. You have some fascinating experiences.
Well, thanks for saying that. I mean, the format of the show is really just two people talking about weird stuff that's happened to them and trying to make sense of it. And that's really, the format of the show. I'll tell you what, that's good. Thanks for letting me know. And by all means, those two stories are absolutely engaging enough. That's lots for you to offer today. So thank you again for doing that. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So here are some of the questions I'll ask as we go to wind down here and let you go and get back on with your Sunday. It's something that I'm curious about for anyone who comes on the show. And in your case, I'm curious about it because I get a strong instinct that you are very comfortable with these occurrences and very comfortable kind of living in a world in which a community beyond the veil exists. So I guess my question is like, how, for you, I mean, you say that you've got like a Wicca background and you've got, I guess, a bit more comfort with the way things really are. How did you arrive at that place? Because for me, I'm still struggling to integrate this. Like, I don't want to be a new age guy. I don't want to be like a witch, but I think a lot of this stuff is true. I'm just curious, like for you, how you found that path and how you're making it work, if that makes any sense, my question.
So I've always had a strong sense of self, and having self-awareness and knowing from an early age you're different. And I come from a very small rural town. So like people are not very welcoming with different things, if that makes sense. So I had to learn from an early age to accept myself, because I wasn't raised as a Christian. I was able to make my own path. I was able to choose my own religion or thereof, spirituality is what I would call it. I had a lot of people around me that were forced to go to church every Sunday and, forced to do certain things that are like, this is what you have to do. You really don't have to do anything except for what you want to do. And the main thing is to believe in yourself. You're the only one that's going to make your path. As a magician, you have all the tools you need. You just need to focus that energy to be successful. How you take that, you could go either way with it. Some people apply it and are still oppressed, and they still, can't fully express themselves no matter how hard they try. But, I mean, for me, I don't know any other person to be but myself. So, I mean, I've had to just take what I was, born with, take my will and apply it to my life the best way possible. Not everybody agrees with it, but I don't care. I don't really care about people's opinion, to be honest. And that's the hardest part. It's like loving yourself, basically.
That's a great answer. I think you're a very strong person. And I really do like, I have a low-key kind of envy of people like yourself who are a little bit further along in their acceptance of the way the world is and are developing practices to live within that framework. I guess I'm doing the same thing by doing this show, but if I'm honest, the show just generally speaking leaves me more confused and in awe in a good way, but at the same time, like not, I don't know. I just like, well, I got to go pay my taxes and I got to like focus on my retirement. And then I also have to like live in a world with fairies and aliens. Which one is true can sometimes be a very difficult conflict to wade through because both are true. And how to reconcile that is very fascinating to me as much as what people saw. So thanks for answering that question. Well, Nina, here's the question I ask everybody who comes on the show as we start to wind down. There's no right answer. There's no wrong answer. But the question is as follows. Nina, what do you think fairies are?
That is a good question. Fairies. I would go back to your comment about mushrooms, how they have a whole system that runs, and that's a whole communication system that runs underground to how everything talks, plants talk to each other. I think that's the same thing how Fae works. fairies, gnomes, things that we don't typically see. That doesn't mean they're not there. I will say this: I've tried DMT. Have you heard anything about the machine elves? I have seen them. But I've seen two different versions, and I'm not sure if it has anything to do with the type of DMT I've done. But I do believe that there are things there all the time that you don't necessarily get to see until that veil is lifted, until the time is right, or they want you to see them. So, I mean, I really think that they are just there. But you don't always see them, and you're not always in the right state of mind, or they're not wanting to show themselves to you.
I think that answer is pretty accurate, to be honest. I would agree with a lot of that. You're the first person I've had the privilege to talk to who's seen the machine elves, although I've heard about it extensively. Tell me, if you could, what that was like to see them. Tell me what that was like.
So, the ones that I've seen, they're kind of like, you know how the Aztec art looks? Like in between the shapes, you can kind of see like a figure, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, the ones that I've seen are like an Aztec type. Kind of like the artwork you see on like the ruins, like some of the ancient ruins, the Mayans and stuff like that. Those little characters I've seen. Now, the first time I ever did DMT, this was like early 2000, probably 07. I went into cartoon land. This is what, when you're younger and you're like, oh, people have never done LSD. Like what you think you're going to see when you actually trip. Like you see all these colors and shapes. No, I saw that on DMT. And it was the craziest thing, like swirls, fractals, but people still walking and talking, but they looked like cartoons, if you could imagine. Yellow Submarine type thing. That was real life for a few seconds. But then, like I said, there was another type of DMT that I tried, and that was the one where I saw machine elves, and they were just there. Like when that veil's lifted, you see all these different colors and fractals, and then beings. And they don't really interact with you, they're just there. Like they've always been there.
It is such an interesting component of DMT trips that so many users describe these machine elves.
It's natural. It's like it's there, though. It's kind of hard to put into words if you've never like seen it or experienced it. And it's only a short time. It doesn't last very long. But when it does, it's very intense. And you're like seeing things. It's like, oh my gosh, like, wow, like plants and trees. Like you like see chloroform. Like you see through them. Like it comes to life.
I'll do my my job as host here by quickly saying, and this is something I do say anytime drug use discussion comes up on the show. Your brain is an important and fragile instrument. Drug use is not for everybody. Doing drugs as a way of connecting with the other side is potentially one path that is available to you. However, if you're going to do it, please, I implore you, start very, very slowly with any substance. You know, like I always make the joke, cut the pill into 10 pieces, dip your finger in and try the dust first.
Yes.
If 40 minutes later you're feeling okay, maybe have another piece. But, you know, please maintain a balance between...
Microdosing.
Absolutely. And maintain a balance between the intended outcomes and the fragility of yourself as a living human being, you know. As we're talking about this machine elf stuff, I don't want to sound too enthusiastic because at the exact same time, my neighbor on back where I live in Canada, her son recently tried DMT for the first time and found that he had very, very, you know, profound psychological problems afterwards, leading to brief period of institutionalization. And he's doing much, much better now. But he was absolutely fine, normal functioning person. And following his DMT trip, he immediately thereafter exhibited this psychological break and has been struggling to reconcile it ever since. So, you can get more than you bargain for by trying this stuff too.
And it may have been synthetic. I mean, there's a lot of fake stuff out there, and I'm sorry to hear that. That's terrible. And I will, to add what you said earlier, yes, please do it. But be in a good state of mind, and less is more. You don't have to do a lot. Do a little bit. You can always do more later. Like, that's what I always tell people. Do not jump into it with both feet. Dip your toe in first. Absolutely. And take care of yourself. It's more of a mental state of mind. I do it for therapeutic reasons. I mean, I'm not doing it to abuse it. And I've only tried DMT like 2 or 3 times, over the past 10 or 15 years. That's not something, because it's so intense. And I can see where it would get to you mentally if you did it too much or had a really strong experience on it.
And Nina, no judgment, I hope you know. I just say that because I have a responsibility to my audience.
Absolutely. No, I'm here to back you with that 100%. I go to a lot of music festivals, and we're here to do no harm. I want people to be healthy and take care of themselves and to be safe while they do it.
Same. And for me, I am walking a fine line with this show because, yes, I saw a fairy. I'm pretty much 100% convinced they're real, but I still do not know any details about that and how to make contact or what is the correct path. Nothing like that could ever be endorsed by me because I simply don't know. That's what makes the show fascinating. Actually, kind of as we get to the tail end here, we've kind of delved into a sub-topic that is not really something you saw, but I think is equally important to the conversation, is drug use or even just meditation practices. Or, I mean, there's a lot of ways people try to make themselves have an altered state to perceive what is there. And I think, just to collect my thoughts a bit. Number one, I agree with your assessment that things like machine elves are not hallucinations, that they are always there, and that perceiving them is a type of lifting of the veil. That's the first thing I totally agree with. At the same time, I do understand that drug use can produce hallucinations.
Yes.
But those are different, and categorically, from an experiential standpoint, you are able to feel, see, and smell and determine the difference between a hallucination and a real perception, even in an altered state. It's easy to make that distinction. So, it can be very difficult to talk about fairy or paranormal subject matter when it starts to bleed over into lifestyle approaches, because I do think there's almost an envy of experience that can exist out there. And I really worry sometimes people are going to try to have contact experiences through the use of drugs and end up with a bad outcome, like my neighbor's son.
Right.
So, I just try to balance my narrative as best as I can, while at the same time saying, yeah, I'm really interested to hear what you saw on DMT, and I don't invalidate it. So both are true at the same time. As complicated as that is, that's adult life for you. Nothing's perfect,
Yes,
so.
absolutely.
And it's a real treat to get to hear your perspective, because I don't think it's often discussed in as much depth as we're doing it now. So, and I agree with you, DMT can be produced a variety of ways. And with any drug, start by knowing your source as much as you can. Hopefully getting it from a trusted person with a track record of not harming others in the past is your best bet. And, if you can, get your hands on testing kits for various drugs. I don't know that one exists for DMT currently. It's hard to pre-test that. That's a big part of the problem there.
True. Yeah, because it's supposed to be like a plant extract if it's pure DMT. Now, I know they do make synthetic ones that they make into like a vape now. Now, that scares me because I feel like that would have a lot of different synthetic things put into it. But I don't know 100%, but I'm with you that the source is the main thing.
And I actually believe when it comes to DMT, there's pretty, not super simple, but there's pretty robust how to do it yourself. And it is a plant extract. It's found naturally in a lot of uh, plant material, basically. So you
Salvia.
can yeah, even certain tree barks and on and on. Just before we go, I'll just something I was listening to last night, another podcast I really appreciate called Criminal. They were just talking about during alcohol prohibition, bootleggers were mixing methanol instead of ethanol into, the bootleg alcohol. And methanol is made from wood, whereas ethanol is just made from plants. And the difference being that methanol makes you go blind and kills you in very small doses. But both substances smell, taste, and drink just like alcohol. Both give you the same effect as alcohol. One, however, metabolizes into something that can kill you a few hours later, and normal ethanol alcohol just dissipates. So even something as simple as black market alcohol was potentially deadly for the user, right? This is not something exclusively limited to hallucinogenic drugs at risk. It's any substance you're going to take is a risk, even something from your doctor. So just always play safe and gentle with your brain. Like you said, Nina, know yourself, be in a good mindset, and be ready for what's coming too. Like have a sense of what doing these drugs may potentially bring, and ask yourself, do I really want that? Don't just do them for the experience of them themselves. Look into it a little bit more and ask yourself, do I really want to go to that place? That's another good piece of advice that I'll leave on the topic of drug use as we wander away here. And that kind of, we got a little bit off the track there, but that was all part of your answer about what fairies are, which ended up being a really fascinating answer. So thanks for that.
Sorry about that. I didn't mean to go off the subject there, but it really kind of does go hand in hand, like the way I describe it, because I'm very interested. I know this is wrapping up, but your story from the lady earlier with the gnome, did she ever see her again? Did she ever see the gnome again?
She's absolutely seen the gnome multiple times on Ring camera. And that gnome, Grimble Grumble, wreaked havoc with this podcast for a good back half of season 1.
Oh my gosh. I have to listen to your podcast for that. I'm going to have to go back and listen. So I will DM you for that.
It is a fucking trip. Like, I'm not self-promoting here. Fascinating Fae is a weird thing. And more than one person listening to this show has been like sucked down the rabbit hole. And
you have a new listener. Yeah, you have a new fan now. So,
well, thanks for that, Nina. I try to earn all my fans one at a time. So, okay. Well, I'll tell you what. I think we've kind of covered all of my standard podcast ground. If it's cool with you, I'll tell you this. I let every guest that I speak to have a final word on the show. So if you just hang out for like 1 minute, I'm going to do my podcaster sign off, and then I'll let you have the last word, if that's cool with you. Okay. Well, thanks for that, Nina. Tonight, you've been listening to Fascinating Fae, and I'm your host, Jim. If you've had an encounter and you'd like to be on the show, please send me an email at encounters@fascinatingfae.com, which is a great way to start the conversation. You can also find the show on social media at Fascinating Fae, everywhere you look. And recently, we've started a episode discussion group on Facebook, which you can find by looking for the Fascinating Fae official episode discussion group. And you can join the conversation that follows these episodes, which is really a robust part of the show process at this stage. Lots of people talking in there when the shows drop, which is a lot of fun if you want to do that sort of thing. And that's pretty much all my housekeeping. So what I'll say next is that on behalf of all of the human and non-human listeners that are tuning into Fascinating Fae tonight, a super big thanks to Nina for coming on the show all the way from Florida. Nina, thanks for being here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Well, Nina, as I mentioned a second ago, I give all of my guests the final word. So if you'd be so kind as to leave myself and the guests with the final word here tonight.
Sure. Be yourself, be kind, especially to others. And once in a while, you get shown the light in the strangest of places if you look at it right.
Mother Mary called. She said she's quite appalled. The way that things turned out, they blow her away. She said we need to slow things down before we fall to fate and drown on the sea of time. We are the breaking wave. Mother Nature wrote, the children choke me by my throat. They scar my skin and chase me right to my grave. We must behave to stay afloat. The leak is growing in the boat on the sea of time. We are the breaking wave. Father Christmas came. He said I'm gonna go insane. The population's pregnant and I'm a slave. This rapid rate makes it clear to me we're sunk in the strait of destiny on the sea of time. We are the breaking wave.
But yeah, man. So we started. She's telling me she's looking at these lights from our balcony. I mean, dude, this is the most reluctant thing. I am so fat and fucking tired. We ate Cajun food at like a bomb New Orleans style restaurant in St. Augustine, and I'm just like, okay, lights. Like it's something. Might be a satellite way up there. Blah blah. And also I'm military. I'm former military, so I've been trained. I stand watches and spot things and stuff, basic level, like, look, dude, you can stare at a light, and you'll think it's coming towards you. I'd kind of go through the usual things and like find a vantage point, and look at it, and then you can see from like a mark that on the balcony here if there's something's actually moving. Well, as I'm doing this, I look at it, and this dot, like, dude, there's a difference between that move or like you don't have to ask. It just it tells you, like, dude, the thing started zigzagging and like a drone or something, and then an actual plane goes by with like with the and this is me just still going like, dude, it's nothing, it's a drone, like stop being silly, just not in the dismissive, very dismissive and tired. Not what was on my list to do, and I kind of like making fun of people that believe in UFOs. So you're not talking to somebody that was like, "Oh, look, I could see a UFO tonight," and have a cool story to tell all my friends that believe in UFOs. Like, the opposite, And so I see this thing. Their plane goes by it, doing the usual blinking and actual light. This was just a ball of basically white light out there. Looked like a star that just moved. And then the thing goes with the plane at its exact speed and blinks with the thing and then just stops and lets the plane keep going. Like it was utterly playing with it. I was just like, dude, okay, that was weird. I'll give you that. I'm still not wanting to do, I'm still like, okay, cool. Saw a weird thing, dude, follow a plane. She's like, dude, yeah, there was a road. I'm going down to the beach to go look. I'm like, oh. No, like, yeah, I'm going. I gotta go look. Like, all right, and I'm going with. No, I'm not letting you go alone. Yeah, very, just I'm going with you. We go across the road, and I think I walked by while she was telling you. It looked like something was sitting on the water, like where a little bit off the shore. And I'm thinking, Jimmy Buffett kind of shit around. You're in Costa Rica. They get wrap Christmas lights around the crow's nest and play, the fucking music and shit. And like, that's just somebody's party boat with a a white, a crow's nest wrapped up in lights or something, right? And then, yeah, that's dude. And then she wanted me to take a picture of it. This is how self conscious I was. I'm like, dude, I'm not that guy. No, I didn't want to take a picture of it. I'm like, it's just you know, some floating with lights on it. I mean, I really just was not into that kind of thing. And then I turned the phone on and it went from LED light to phosphorus. Like it's like as soon as and it, dude, I'm embarrassed to say this now. It's like the shit on the corniest, campiest shit on TV, dude. Like my phone goes off, keeps cutting off. I power it back on to take a picture of this thing or a video because everybody like, oh, you saw it? Why didn't you fucking film it with the fucking video camera in your fucking pocket? And yeah, we did get footage, but that's what I would always say to people. Is like, that's a great story. Why don't you whip up that video camera and then you whip it out. And dude, it's a light in the sky. You can't even see the stars because they're dim, even though we could there on a clear night. We saw the stars. But you see this white light in darkness coming towards us, and then the camera dies. Power back up. It's closer. You can hear. I'm telling her while it's happening. I'm like, it's a drone. I'm like, it's a drone. It's a plane. She does this thing. I thought it was so funny. She starts to run. And I'm dying, dude. I'm like, take my husband. He's slow. Kick me in the shin and run off. I'm like, dying. I'm like, and you can hear my voice on the phone because I did record this stuff. And I'm like, but then I my voice changed because like the thing flew over me. Okay. Like I said, I'm poor military. Yeah, that's what my stomach got cold. My wrist got cold, because it came over and there was no real discernible craft. It was a ball of light. And at this underneath, no, it was, yeah. And then it was translucent. It was all color shimmering within it, translucent. It went green with like about the triangle three. Green, and I saw a red right over me. It was the three, like a triangle of three discs, that kind of 3-disc triangle thing, were reddish, like within that. But there was no like ball. Like I'm willing to say to people, if that was ball lightning, I wouldn't know. It could have been ball lightning. I'm not an advocate, but then it goes over us. And then there's people coming out because we're at a hotel behind us on the road. And then that whole area is, tourist stuff. So you see people coming out on their beach house, like patios and shit with their phones. Everybody's going like, what the fuck? And then like a bunch of shit started happening where I turned around and watched it go over us, over to the other street. A bunch of shit happened at once. Then seen a little thing go up to it. You remember that? And then just like the goddamn campy TV thing, it zips off. And then while I'm looking at that, I hear my wife go, and I have to tell you, this is before I ever heard of submerging UFOs. I hadn't heard of that before. I wasn't in my lexicon. And she's like, oh, one just went to the water. I just seen it hit the water. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And I did not see that. So the whole time I kind of was just, then I see like a UFO show. They're like, oh, they go in the, it's, all that kind of, this is way before before the Tic Tac was released. And actually it coincides with the date, honey, the Showtime UFO documentary off the coast of Jacksonville. That's, they have a submerging UFO in that big Showtime one they did. J.J. Abrams did. You know the one I'm talking about? Yeah, the J.J. Abrams one. They do a flash beat of something 2015, and that was it, off the coast of Jacksonville, and it was a submerging thing, and I haven't seen that in a while, so I can't. I don't want to speak details and then be wrong on that. But I think that's what it said, and that's was the exact timeline that we saw that. And I have to say this part that you didn't see, and standing there and like a softball with no lights, a black softball whipped all around our little area and then and took off. Just I'm like, dude, it was completely silent, and I'm like, if I hadn't just locked my eyes on that dark shape, I would have never seen that. So like a little tiny freaking black ball did like, you know, a quick little zoom around us. There's a lot going on, dude. And then we were looking around for other people immediately. It's what you do. You're like, did you see that? And there were some other people that we like, not on the beach, but up in the hotel. And we're just like throwing our arms up, looking at them like, okay. And, and so what nobody prepares you for something like this. And Northrop Grumman has a facility near here. You know, I'm not, like I said, I'm not advocate. I don't know what I saw. You know, most of it, yeah, unidentified is what it is. You know, but we found out that Northern Grumman has a thing there, and then we talked to the lady in the lobby, and we're just like, "Hey, we don't want to seem weird or anything, but last night, did anybody?" And she's like, "Oh, this happens all the time. My son has videos of one little light going to the other little light, and then they both go off together and just telling us all these stories." And I'm just like, seriously? Like, I mean, dude. And then life goes on. That's what it never prepared you for. Yeah, and I'm sorry if I'm babbling here, but I just wanted to share it because, dude, we don't really talk about it too much. Yeah, and you can. He's not recording right now. We're just finishing. It's all good. Yeah, and I just thought you might appreciate it from a skeptic kind of thing who did not want to see a UFO, who thought it was silly and was ready to, you know, mansplain it, you know, to my wife, no problemo, you know. And I was like, what the fuck was that? Okay. Oh yeah, dead silence, dude. I mean, I saw the Raptor before it came out do a sonic boom over the ocean while we had the Korean and Japanese lead. I was on a flagship for the 7th Fleet, which is the, you know, if North Korea invades South Korea, those kind of exercises we do. And they show off the coast there, we're showing them these new weapons coming out. And dude, you know, that shit shakes you from the inside out. That thing's miles away from you. And it's just like, it's so loud and so powerful. And that thing was right, a Volkswagen Beetle-sized ball of light was right above us, and all you hear is the ocean going. Maybe a little maybe when it got right above us, but that was it. And you just hear the waves cracking, and then my shit went cold. My stomach got cold. I was like, I don't know what the fuck that. I was still waiting to see. I was waiting for it to make sense, and it still doesn't.
I know that physical response when something's not right. It's a certain kind of feeling. I know what you mean.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Wow.
Well, I don't want to take up too much more of your time, but I just wanted you to at least, you know, hear Charles's, you know, side of the story.
What a great way to end. Honestly, I really appreciate that. It's really good to hear both of you tell your side of it. It's really interesting. I totally believe you saw that. I wonder what the fuck it is.